Well, hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading and quasi-comprehensive commentary on The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers for January 18th, the day of Childlike Fancy. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of Childlike Fancy. Well, we have us an image of, what could it be? Boom, it looks to be a barracuda head and a couple of quills atop a cask lid or a barrel lid. Is that a visual representational image of the day of Childlike Fancy? Well, it is a little bit imaginative or silly, maybe. Maybe that's where the visual association ends, who's to say. But that being said, maybe we'll make some kind of connotations as we get on with the read. But that having been said, I just want you to kind of see what I'm staring at here. It doesn't necessarily have any kind of importance there. But what is important is it is January 18th, and hence it must be somebody's birthday. And with that in mind, wishing you a happy birthday. That's what's important around here. So happy birthday. But if this finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may be, I just want to say, hope you had a happy birthday in that case. But having said that, a lot of times random folks like to drop in, or those who want to celebrate the January 18th birthday. And for all of you who are doing so, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts are roll some dice. That's right. This is the DykASSt birthday broadcast, so I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And I rolled us a 5 and a 6, 4 and 11. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, my friends, a lot of the time we get out into the world, we're very singular or laser or narrow of focus, right? We got the blinders on to kind of what's going on around us. Yeah, we might see such things as we're going on our daily commute to work or just in the midst of running errands, but we might not lend them much consideration. And as I've heard it told, the universe or the powers that be will put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But if we got the blinders on, hey, we might not be seeing those things for what they are. And so this is just a little bit of an exercise to help us take those blinders off and hopefully see the things that the universe is putting down for us by coming up with a sign that we can't help but notice. That's right. Something agreed between us and the universe there. They're the numbers. Your 5 and your 6 for an 11. Now, you don't have to go with the numbers that I rolled for you. The intention is there, but it's probably ideal you raid that Yahtzee set that's collecting dust and get your own set of dice. So if you decide to get out into the world and try to recognize some synchronicities or stack up some coincidences, well, you have something to help you lead the way. That's right. So you can ascribe directional values to number sets and time limits with which to go in those directions. But that having been said, once you've established all those things and you've picked out a place to kind of start a walk from or an exploration of the world from, I don't know, like say the town square, I often like to use that example, or just any place that's maybe dear to your heart. Pick that out, get your numbers going, and set out. But like I said, get those blinders off because you never know. The day might start to take on a little bit of a theme, all right? Hey, let's go with the visual representational image here. A barracuda head and some feathers there, or some quills. I know, those are pretty random things. There's also a cask head. Oh yeah, maybe just keep that kind of thing in mind, or something that you found very interesting on the day. So that being said, you set off, and maybe you get to the end of your first time limit there, and you're not really seeing anything. Well, if that's the case, don't be dissuaded. Just take some time, compose yourself, look around at what's going on, and maybe you might notice something like the street number up there on the corner that you're at. It might just be, I don't know, 11th Ave or 56th Street. I don't know. I would take that as a sign that you're on the right path. So don't get dissuaded, like I said. Maybe roll yourself another time value, directional value there, and set off on that direction. Hey, maybe by the time you reach the end of that particular little jaunt or leg of the journey, hey, maybe a city bus pulls up in front of you. And what's this? Maybe it's the number 11 line. And maybe you just so happen to have perfect change in your pocket for as much. Hey, you know what? In a day and age when people most likely don't have change in their pocket, I would say that's the universe telling you to get on board, see what you see. And maybe as you get on the bus, you're really apt to want to get off, perhaps because you don't ride the bus all that often. Well, hey, what's this? You see somebody wearing a sports jersey with the number 56 on there, or 11, whatever the case may be. Or perhaps you see something very anomalous, like somebody in a hot pink shirt amidst a sea of otherwise blasé colors, or anything that stands out to you based on impulse. Sometimes, we're not necessarily seeing things, so we have to go with anomalies that are out there. And if that's the case, I'd say roll yourself a time value and follow them. Or in this case, since you're on the bus, see when that individual gets off. And then roll yourself a time value to see how long to follow them for. All right? And I know that seems a little bit sketchy, I don't know, stalkerish, but hey, give yourself a little bit of a buffer. That said, if that person does spy you following them, hey, you shouldn't have been stalking them, right? No, then if that's the case, just be open, transparent about what you're doing. Show them your dice, maybe show them this video, and as I often like to say, they're going to think it's crazy, but not for the reasons that you think. It might just so happen that, as weird as the rolling dice and trying to drum up synchronicities is, they might just share your birthday. That's right, you never know. Stranger things have happened, and as I often like to also claim, perhaps they decide to join you on this journey, because everybody wants a little bit of magic in their life, I would argue. And so maybe you guys set off, and maybe just as you're doing so, a couple of feathers drift by. Who's to say? There's your theme setting up for you. So, get out there, see, taste, touch, smell, maybe even intuit a little bit of magic, and you'll understand why I brought it up. Stack up some coincidences, some synchronicities, and just get out and enjoy yourself, all right? It's your birthday. You should be doing something fun and out there trying to take off the blinders and expand your horizons. All right, I think you get the idea of synchronicity, so let's get on with the birthday read. Your month is January. Your day is the 18th. Your sign is 27 to 29 degrees Capricorn of the Capricorn Aquarius Cusp period specifically. And your quality and element is Cardinal Earth. All right, January 18th, the day of Childlike Fancy. Those born on January 18 are never far removed from their childlike and playful selves. They must be kidded from time to, or they may be kidded from time to time, rather, for being naive, but rarely can they be criticized for being calculating, avaricious, or opportunistic. And those born on this day are very much tuned in to what comes naturally. They enjoy having fun, but are not particularly fond of weighty matters, and indeed they may suffer greatly when demands of the adult world are imposed on them. Consequently, the greatest challenge for January 18 people is to mature into an adult role but persevere their sense of playfulness, or preserve their sense, rather. And January 18 people usually make excellent parents themselves. They have a natural understanding of what pre-adolescent children like, and they may, however, have a great deal of trouble with their own parents, particularly during their adolescence and late teen years. Departing from childhood is often tragically difficult for January 18 people, and their parents must be extremely sensitive to their transitional needs, particularly in not laying heavy adult pressures on them too soon, or insisting that they abruptly give up childlike habits, as such demands will not only foment discord and plant seeds of rebellion. January 18 people like to keep life light, but also demand a healthy dose of excitement and adventure to keep them stimulated. And when they are unable to find peak experiences in their daily lives, they may retreat to a fantasy world where everything is allowed and everything is possible. And since their joys and interests are then internalized, they may unfortunately come to give more and more on, or give up rather, more on the outer world, and in extreme cases withdraw into their original childhood realm. And more highly evolved January 18 people are able to first sublimate and then project their fantasies out on the world, not only summoning up peak experiences, but also developing ideas, creating original products, or perhaps just manifesting a highly unique outlook and approach to the art of living. Where love is concerned, January 18 people tend to attract more practical, down-to-earth types who perhaps feel gratified by an awakening of their own childlike nature. A successful relationship of this kind inevitably provides a deep sense of security for both January 18th people and their more grounded partner, and thus very heavily based on mutual trust and sharing the relationship will be. Generally speaking, January 18th people may be happy even when working in mundane jobs, as long as they have free time which is absolutely their own to enjoy as they please. However, for the reasons stated earlier, it is best for them when they can integrate their more fanciful side in a creative or stimulating work environment. And without such stimulation, those born on this day may experience difficulties concentrating, especially when performing tasks of a repetitive nature, and may even be caught flagrantly daydreaming. All right, how about that for a rather narrow-focused birthday breakdown? I would say within that narrow scope, however, they did expand out and round things off a little bit. Typically, with these Capricorn days here, I know even though we're getting into Aquarius, these Capricorn days like to hyper drill down and focus on things with just a very laser focus. It's interesting because this is the only period that's done that. That having been said, I might be getting ahead of myself. Like I said, I like to provide a little bit of commentary, so let's dive into some notes, shall we? January 18, the day of Childlike Fancy. You're never far from childlike playfulness, and people are said to probably make light of a seemingly naive nature of yours. But conversely, your eye on material gain and opportunity, calculating pursuits, they may not be there, all right? And I would say that's a positive, because that's a very highly, adult kind of thing. I don't know. It's the innocence isn't there when you start getting into those things, which to me, telltale evidence of a society with misplaced priorities in its way, right? Making one's way and being an ostensible success, while important, it's not all there is, all right? And what's in it for all of that if that's the case? You know, it's just there's something missing if that's the focus, I would argue. Let's see. Because, I mean, what comes from that? Laurels and cash, all right? And those are great, but they have nothing on the ability to enjoy life without them, all right? But society's success-oriented myopia notwithstanding, the reading claims you may suffer greatly when the demands of the adult world are imposed upon you, which I'd say makes all the sense in the world if the breakdown applies. Hence, your greatest challenge is being able to marry or balance an adult life with your sense of playfulness. And having said that, the reading claims you make excellent parents considering your nature, but you may have issues with your own. And the reading takes a moment to speak to the parents of people born on this day in an approach to handling transitions into adulthood for a very rare departure this period. It comes up once in a while in the other zodiac periods, maybe 1 or 2 days, but not very often. And it certainly hasn't come up for the Capricorn period. But what I would assume is welcome. I would assume it's just welcome advice, especially if you're a January 18th person and you just wished you had had a little bit of that in your childhood, right? I would assume so. That said, you're said to keep life light, but demand excitement and adventure, all right? And you may retreat into a fantasy world if it just can't be found externally for you. With joy, if you like. But the key of it sounds like it's projecting your fantasies into the real world and showcasing it for others, and then the unique dreams that come from that, or that you're able to infuse out there for other people. Especially if they're not necessarily capable of doing as much themselves, all right? You're providing a value there if you're able to do that. And if you're brave enough to help realize that for other people there. And if they're brave enough to let you help them in that regard, I would argue. But as far as partners are concerned, I like this mutual trust shared with a more grounded individual for you. All right, you help each other in the ways that you're each at a deficit, I would assume. A coupling that allows for you to build off and evolve together through a bolstering and a respective lack of strengths and or lack of strengths and weaknesses there. So you bolster each other up. So I would say it's a very well-rounded birthday within the regards of that narrow scope. And it's probably one of the first in this period, like I said, which seems quite the anomaly considering they're so hyper-focused on particular aspects there. Especially this particular trait. I just like that they threw in that parenting thing there for you because, like I said, it was such an anomaly there. But all told, they did pretty narrowly focus down on the childlike aspect. But hey, it lives up to the title there, I would argue. So they did so in a decent fashion there. I enjoyed it. That having been said, let's see what else we can see with your numbers and your planets. Let's see what other connections we can make and find out a little bit about this astrology thing. Those born on the 18th month, or the 18th of the month rather, are ruled by the number 9, as 1 plus 8 equals 9, and by the planet Mars. The number 9 is powerful in its influence on other numbers, as any number added to 9 yields that number. E.g., 5 plus 9 is 14, 1 plus 4 is 5. And any number multiplied by 9 yields a 9. So 9 times 5 is 45, and 4 plus 5 is 9. All right? And January 18th people are similarly able to exert a strong influence on those around them. That's what they're getting at here. And because of this influence of Uranus, the ruler of the upcoming sign Aquarius, January 18th people must be particularly careful about getting attached to bizarre, devious, or difficult individuals from whom they will later have difficulty in disentangling themselves from. And the further influence of the planet Saturn, which is Capricorn's ruler, on the planet Mars can make for an overly accommodating personality vulnerable to exploitation. Which, that sounds like a bad coupling there, because you get the folks that are going to try to take advantage of you, and then you're vulnerable to it, though. Maybe. That having been said, I might be getting ahead of myself again. Let's see what I had to say about your numbers and your planets. Diving back into the notes here. All right, number 9, in the planet Mars, for powerful influences on those around you. All right, what with a erratic and explosive influence from the planet Uranus coming into a co-rulership dynamic with the constrictive planet Saturn. The likes of which can be seen as a lessening of Uranus's effects on within that specific rulership dynamic there. And the reading claims you must beware of particularly bizarre, devious, and difficult individuals getting entangled in your orbit, like they said. Which I'm assuming they have such people that such things have happened to with which to draw that idea from. Because I don't know where they would get that otherwise. How is that dictated by the stars and the influence of the planets? Who's to say? Especially since there's no context. So I would think that might be where they're getting it from. That said, Saturn's influence is also said to give you an accommodating nature that's vulnerable to exploit. So by and large, a very anomalous Mars day, all right? And I say that because Mars usually imparts that god of war-like energy, as I like to call it. There's like this aggressiveness or this anger that a lot of folks that are born on these Mars days have to showcase. And I didn't pick up on any of that here in the breakdown for you. So when I saw this was a Mars day, I was quite a bit surprised, all right? But I like this playful defiance of convention that you have. Maybe that's where it's realized. And I can't help but think that you have Uranus to thank for that one, for better or for worse. Uranus being the explosive, erratic planet that shakes up the powers of all the other planets. And it may speak to maybe lessening a little bit of Mars's influence there. Who's to say? I don't know much about astrology. I just have what I've read in the book and what I read in the numbers and planets to go by. But that having been said, yeah, it's interesting. You don't really necessarily have that god of war aggression to you. But hey, that might not be the worst thing in the world. Who's to say? That having been said, that's what I have to say about your numbers and your planets. So let's move on to your tarot. All right, your tarot. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies. But hey, it's here in the book. It's your birthday. We can make a lot of connections sometimes, further bolster ideas they've already put down. So let's see what they have to say. It's not like that every time. We'll have to find out. The 18th card of the major arcana is the Moon, which primarily represents the world of dreams, emotions, and the unconscious. Unconscious, rather. Positive attributes include sensitivity, empathy, and emotional understanding. Negative qualities include emotional malleability, passivity, and a lack of ego. All right, yeah. The Moon card. Here we go. Let's dive in. Precious little is usually said for the Moon, also the Sun, and a couple others. What did we have here? Yeah, so this was a total copy-paste job. They didn't personalize this for you at all. And often I got nothing to go by for context here because I don't know anything about the tarot, so we'll just have to see what connections we can make. So let's dive back in with the notes here. The Moon is a once-a-month card, like I said, for the world of dreams, emotions, and the unconscious. Positive sensitivity, empathy, and emotional understanding, but a lack of ego, passivity, and emotional malleability for those negatives. Just to retread that for you here. I would say it's a particularly apt card based on what was said in the breakdown. But also, like I said, precious little is really said here for context. But I would say all the characteristics mentioned here in the card, they dovetail nicely into this childlike fancy. And in a lot of ways, they fly in the face of any challenges that the adult world might put down in front of you. Those conventions that you seem to be bucking there. So a definite for better or worse argument is to be had for that dynamic. So balancing both of which, I would say, so getting the best of both worlds is probably a worthwhile endeavor. So yeah, keep your foot in the childlike fancy, but also keep the other one kind of in the adult world there for you, if that wasn't making sense. All right. Both have their advantages and their disadvantages, and a lot of that was covered in the breakdown. But yeah, like I said, I just think it was a pretty apt card. You have the empathetic side there, emotional malleability. It all dovetails really interestingly into that childlike fancy, I would argue. So it's like I said, again, it's very interesting that Mars came up that way because I didn't see any Mars at all. So in any event, that's been your tarot. So let's move on to your health. All right, let's find out about your health here. Those born on January 18 must beware of their tendency to live in a dream world, all right? Keeping regularly scheduled social obligations, taking an active part in family gatherings, and generally assuming responsibilities in the world are all helpful in grounding them. Mind-expanding drugs such as hallucinogens should be avoided and antidepressants viewed with extreme caution, says. A diet as well as a method of food presentation that allows them to experiment with exotic, spicy foods in vibrant colors suits them well. However, stable, earthy foods such as potatoes, breads, and root vegetables should remain a mainstay. Only mild to moderate exercise is suggested for January 18 people, and aggressively competitive sports for non-professionals not highly recommended. Full sleep is essential, and daily naps are recommended if possible. Okay, very interesting health entry today. Again, it's flying in the face of that Mars rulership. Let's get into it here. Tendency to live in a dream world, they said, all right? Again, a striking anomaly for Mars. And I say that, I'm getting ahead of myself. Doing adult things like logistics and social gatherings is recommended to ground you, but avoidance of hallucinogens and antidepressants, interestingly, are advised against. It's usually reserved for Neptune dreamers, all right? The number 7 days here, and this is where I was about to get ahead of myself. The Neptune folks, the watery planet that rules visions and illusions, that's what this day totally read like. And so I would have to assume that, I don't know, Uranus is in there shaking things up and causing that dynamic with Mars, I'm assuming. Because by and large, this reads like a Neptune day. Even so far as to say they recommended getting your dream time and your sleep. That only ever presents with Neptune days. Sometimes not even then. So interesting they brought that up. Also this idea of staying grounded. That's a huge Neptune thing because those folks always have their head up in the clouds, if you like, as they reach for the stars, and they just need things to pull them in and ground them. They brought up some very interesting food aspects. Again, the food's there to ground you. They didn't mention though was the Capricorn body areas, the skeleton and the veins. A lot of these days it's come up that the Capricorns need to avoid cholesterol foods like dairy fats and animal fats, and they also recommend taking your supplements, and so I'm assuming calcium to take care of your bones. None of this came up. So I don't know if we're just totally moving out of the phase or that's a consideration, but I would say you still got some Capricorn stuff going on, so maybe be mindful of as much. What else did they have to say? Oh, the sports for your diet. Mars days almost religiously get aggressive, and sometimes even combat sports to keep their aggressions flowing or perhaps excise them. And they warned against that for you. So once again, very anomalous Mars type attributes that they're totally bucking for you. So again, like I said, this reads just like a Neptune day. So maybe you have Uranus to thank for that one. What else do I have to say? Yeah, daily naps there for you. A little Neptune thing. Hey, you know what? I like naps just as much as the next guy, though they're a total waste of time. That having been said, I suppose they must help out some people. So maybe you as well. What else do I have to say? Yeah, watch your veins, watch your skeleton, and take your glucosamine and chondroitin for your joints if that's an issue there. So in any event, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, your advice. Security is not to be sneezed at, and stay in touch with social realities. And remember to pay your bills and beware of becoming isolated. All right, pull your weight in any relationship. All right, very interesting advice here today. A lot of value, I would say, here, considering everything that was gone over in the breakdown. So what did I have to say here? Security is not to be sneezed at. Okay, and here I actually missed a part in the health here. I made a joke about having a blankey or a binky if you need them naps and your security and your childlike fancy, but I missed that because I went total ad-lib on it. Off the script, if you like, outside the notes. And so here I mentioned the binky is a joke, security not to be sneezed at, but I'd reckon they're trying to say don't be averse to the adult stuff, okay? And to that end, stay in touch with the social realities, they said, all right? Pay your bills, okay? Obviously, that's one of the most adult things we could do outside of getting a mortgage or, refinancing a home, which outside of my purview. I know once you start talking about that stuff, I zone out. I'm assuming that's the same for you. So there's gonna be adult stuff to do, all right? Maybe try turning it into a game, I thought. There's a little bit of Dale Carnegie in there. Turn it into a game, make it something fun. Can't imagine it's very fun or very easy to turn such things into a game, but hey, maybe that helps you find a little bit more accessibility to as much. It might help. All right, so beware of becoming isolated, they said. I reckon it helps to ground you if you get outside your comfort zone there. And keep you closer to reality by getting out there in the world, both out of your own world as well, and also outside your comfort zone. Expanding your horizons, not necessarily always easy. The closer, let's see here. So, what did I say here? So dare to get into a little bit of insecurity there, if you like. And then maybe turn that into a game as well. All right, a little Dale Carnegie there. And maybe leave the blanket at home. That's right. I had to bring it up because I seeded that joke in there so much. So I totally burned it down by going ad-lib here. Pull your weight in relationships, they said. 100%. I agree with that 100%. You're half the equation, okay? The half of however that's realized. It's also easy, I would think, to be accused of not pulling your weight if you have that childlike fancy. And if you're playful, the childlike one, the other person wants to have an argument, hey, they're going to say they're not pulling your weight. You're not doing enough. And I have a problem with that myself. I mean, you can only pull your weight in so many different ways depending upon the situations you're in. So pull your weight as much as you can so they can't use that kind of ammunition on you, all right? You might not be contributing all the money because you're not the breadwinner, but here you are on the other side of things, keeping up the house or doing the chores that no one wants to do. Like, that has value. So don't let anyone poo-poo that is what I'm trying to say, all right? And trying to lean in on you being childlike or whatever, hey, that's low-hanging fruit. And you know what? I say about people with low-hanging fruit, maybe you don't. That's an easy grab. You know what? You need to grab a little higher. The children are the ones that reach for the low-hanging fruit. If you want to talk about who's being a child there, that's right. All right, so don't reach for the low-hanging fruit. All right? Even if your blanket's hanging on that branch, all right? Maybe just grab that and avoid the fruit. In any event, that's been your advice. So that being said, let's move on to your meditation. All right, I was getting a little bit passionate there because I don't like them kinds of arguments. All right, your meditation. The playfulness of the universe is reflected in the dance of the stars. All right. I don't know what to think about this one, but hey, it's not my meditation, it's yours. Once more, the playfulness of the universe is reflected in the dance of the stars. All right. Your birthday, your meditation. I'm not going to try to throw some spin or interpretation on it for you. That's just for you. To defeat the purpose of it being a meditation, if you like. But that having been said, your meditation in the can, as it were, let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. That's right. Let's see where you got the girth or the bulk, if you like, and where you otherwise a little more atrophy. That's right. Your strengths and your weaknesses. Your strengths, you're imaginative. Yeah, we knew that one. You're fun. Yeah, we knew that one too. And you're individual. Interesting. I don't think we picked up on that one specifically. We could have kind of come to that common consensus, though, I would say. That having been said, your strengths there. What are your weaknesses? Oh, let's hold up the objective mirror, but flip it to the side that blows up your face. Maybe shows off the things you're ostensibly insecure about. Maybe the fact you're still holding on to a binky blanky. I don't know. Maybe that's here. Let's see. Your weaknesses. Let's get into it here. Your weaknesses. You're naive, it says. You're distracted, and you're immature. Okay, low-hanging fruit. There we go. Even the book's going for it here. You know what a lot of times like to say, these weaknesses and strengths, it just depends on the situation, all right? Some days I see strengths and weaknesses trade back and forth, and that's one day previous or one day after, you know, and it just depends on the individual in question. But individual situation, hey, you know what? I would say if you really want to bring down those weaknesses, your strengths are going to help you get there, all right? Naive, distracted, and immature, well, if you've got the strengths of being imaginative, you're going to figure out a way to address those things. You're a fun individual. Hey, you know what? You can have some fun while you're doing it. Oh, maybe. You know what? Maybe you find the challenge all the more interesting. Dale Carnegie, that thing, like I said, having make friends and influence people. That's one of his tricks there. Turn it into a game. That having been said, I would say your weaknesses are strengths in certain situations. If you're naive and distracted, you know what? If you got people coming down on the group at the job, want to assign responsibility to somebody, and nobody wants to do that job, well, they're certainly not going to give it to the guy that's out there naive about everything. That's a strength. Or distracted by everything. Things up in the air. Like, pull that out your bag there. Maybe you acting like you're distracted because you didn't hear was, yeah, that's a strength, I would say. It's a very specific case, but hey, you know what? Take it where you can. But that having been said, if you are trying to get rid of your weaknesses or bring them down a little bit, I would say don't get rid of them altogether, okay? Because they make us who we are, all right? Being naive and distracted, that's an endearing quality to some folks, all right? I would argue. So just don't let them get out of control. Keep one foot in reality in the adult world and the other one in your dream world, the childlike fancy. So that having been said, those are your strengths and your weaknesses. So let's move on to those born on this day. We get into those born on this day. Not only do we get to see who shares your company, but something I like to do is look at it through the prism of figuring out our passions. That's right. Let's look at this and see if we can get some inspiration for our own passions. And I say as much because a lot of the time I get out in the world and meet folks and ask them what they do, and more importantly, if they like it, and they don't. And you know what? I think it's perfectly understandable. Get out of school, you got to get right into a job to make ends meet. And maybe we just stay there and start climbing that corporate ladder, if you like, because it's easy. We're used to it. We know all about it. And just put on the autopilot, the blinders, if you like. But I would say that stuff's not fulfilling because at the root of it, it had nothing to do with something that we wanted to do with our lives. And then when we get home at the end of the day, end of the week, there's no energy to put in the time to start putting in the work to figure out our passions or the things we want to jump out of bed in the morning to get after and be eager and find fulfillment from. And so if there's anything I can wish for you on your birthday, it's that you're chasing after your passions. That's right, because we got to find something fulfilling in life to do. There's only so much time on this ground, or with our head in the clouds there. But hey, we should be chasing the things we find fulfilling. So let's look at this through that prism and maybe take some inspiration to kindle up our fires and chase down our passions. All right, let's start it off. Those born on this day. We have A. Milne, perhaps, Milne. Not quite sure how to say that one. British writer and famous for Winnie the Pooh. All right, and created Christopher Robin and Piglet, it says. We also have Danny Kaye, a comic film stage actor and an entertainer, also a UNICEF volunteer. We have Oliver Hardy, a film comic of Laurel and Hardy fame. We also have Cary Grant, the British-born film actor. Kevin Costner, the film actor and director of Dances with Wolves. And we also have John Boorman, a British film director of Point Blank and Deliverance. So that was not a very childlike movie, that's for sure. We have Daniel Webster, 19th century politician and a statesman. And we also have Manuel Garcia, the fearless Spanish matador, and gored to death, it says. Jeez, that's a way to go. Robert Anton Wilson, science fiction writer of Prometheus Rising. We also have Peter Mark Roget, a British physician, physiologist, a lexiconographer, and wrote Roget's Thesaurus. That's right, or the creator of as much. I was always wondering how to say that name. I'm probably saying it wrong. Roget, perhaps. Okay. Moving on, we have David Ruffin, the lead singer of The Temptations. We also have Thomas Sopwith, the British airplane designer of the Sopwith Camel biplane. We also have Montesquieu, Baron de la Brede, a French political philosopher and a jurist, it says. I'm not quite sure I was pronouncing that one right. So he was either had a pen name or a title there, as the Baron de la Brede. We also have David J. Bellamy, a British botanist and a writer of The Great Seasons. And we also have Charles Delaney, a French jazz writer and famous for Jazz Hot. He was a publisher of as much, and was also a discographer. We have Al Foster, a jazz drummer, Sanchio Kinugaza, perhaps. That's why I'm getting it wrong here. A Japanese baseball star. Don't always get the Japanese names right. We also have Steve Grossman, a jazz soprano, and a tenor saxophonist. Boy, it's been some time since we had a saxophonist. And I bring that up because there was a time every day seemed to have a saxophonist. But here you buck the trend. There you go, Childlike Fancy. We also have Kirk Varnado, painting director of the Museum of Modern Art. And we also have Bobby Goldsboro, a singer. All right, and that's been those born on this day. I recognized a few of them. Some of them certainly had a little bit of childlike fancy. I don't know how many of them may or may not have had some weird people come into their orbit and start to, try to manipulate them or have undue bad influences and such. But maybe a couple. Like I said, I thought maybe that's where they derived that. It was from people born on this day having that as a consistent through line or theme there. That having been said, that essentially rounds out your birthday read. I know it's a big-ass hard sell to try and take inspiration from as much, but hey, maybe me just putting the bug in your ear about it is going to help you stir the fires, like I said. But that having been said, once again, like I said, that essentially rounds out your birthday, except to say your season is winter, your sign once again is Capricorn, of the Capricorn Aquarius Cusp period specifically, and your quality and elements is Cardinal Earth. All right, I kind of butchered some names there. I got ahead of myself. I got to make up for that because it's not done in malice. It's just hooked on phonics. Doesn't always work for me. Something I did as a child there, if you like. But that having been said, this has been January 18th, the day of Childlike Fancy. I was about to say wonder, but Childlike Fancy. From The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Ust Elvers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description if you're interested in picking up a copy, getting through it a little faster than I could for you, and that save you the hassle of having to type it in a browser there. This makes an excellent coffee table book. If you're looking for something to break the ice at parties, pull this thing down. It's bound to get the party started, for better or for worse. But that having been said, the book having been relayed, like I said at the beginning, this isn't all too important. What is important? It's January 18th, and wishing you a happy birthday. So once again, happy birthday. And for everybody else who joined us randomly, or we're here to celebrate the January 18th birthday, well, I hope you enjoyed yourselves and you're gearing up and you're getting hot and ready to head on over to hear your birthday reading. That's right, assuming it's not up yet. As that being said, hopefully it is there. So, but lest I forget about what we said at the top there, your daily numbers, your 5 and your 6 for an 11, or whatever you happen to roll. Get out there, let the world show you, or let the universe and the powers that be show you that they're with you on your path, all right? Drum up some synchronicities, stack up some coincidences. Hey, if anything else, hopefully you can get out there and see, taste, touch, smell a little bit of magic, or get in a little bit of moderate exercise like they suggested. So, in any event, I just want to once again say, happy birthday, all right? Maintain that sense of childlike fancy, but also keep one foot on the ground, all right? Stay grounded. Find a little bit of synthesis, all right? Take care of yourselves, and once again, happy birthday.